That's the great thing about the movie business. The movie business is inherently democratic. It's inherently democratic because the established players have never been able to corner the market on the essential commodity that you're selling. And that essential commodity that you're selling is a good story, okay? It's creativity, okay? And there's no guarantee that the powers that be, the most famous directors, the most famous writers, that these people are going to come up with the next story that resonates widely in audiences. There's no guarantee. And in fact, in many times, it's just the opposite. My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Here's a movie that cost $5 million to make. And the person who funded it is a guy who made his fortune in the computer business. I think his name is Norm Wyatt. He made his fortune with Gateway Computers. And he financed it, and they did a deal with HBO. HBO put up half the budget, half the $5 million budget, probably as a favor to Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks' wife, Rita Wilson, was a fan of this stage play, and probably HBO thought they were doing Tom Hanks a favor. Turned out they did themselves a big favor because they got the domestic rights for a pittance for a film that became a huge hit. Well, when this movie was finished, they shopped it to all the distributors, and the distributors looked at it and they said, oh, you know, the Greek-American community is just not that big. We just don't think it has much potential. And they all passed on it. So they hired, you know, an independent guy, Bob Burney, who went out and distributed it and booked it into theaters, and it became a huge hit. And there were lines down the street at theaters that were showing My Big Fat Greek Wedding. When the Paramount mega movie next door in the next theater was empty, because people don't care. People care about a good story. I mean, when people go to see a movie, they don't go in there and they care about what the budget is, right? I mean, when you go in to see a movie, you don't look up at the screen and look at the budget. You know, the budget doesn't matter. And you pay the same ticket price whether it's an independent film or a major studio film. What you care about is the story. And you probably don't even know who the distributor is. If I asked you what's your favorite movie and who distributed it, most of you probably wouldn't remember, because what does it matter whether it was distributed by MGM or Paramount or Warner Brothers? It doesn't matter to most people. Okay, it's not like when you buy sneakers. When you buy sneakers, maybe you want Nike sneakers or you want Reebok sneakers or you want a certain brand of sneakers. When you go to movies, all you care about is the story. And increasingly what you care about is what your friends tell you about the movie. Okay? Independent films especially rely upon good word of mouth. And nowadays word of mouth spreads incredibly quickly. With the internet and instant messaging, people go to movies on a Thursday night, and you know, by Sunday everyone knows, if not before, whether it's good or not, and the word gets around. And if you have a little movie and you can get it out there and people really like it, the word spreads, the lines materialize at the box office, and at the same time people avoid the bigger budget films because they just don't care. And no one has been able to accurately predict which stories will resonate with audiences, you know. And if you look at, what's interesting to look at is every year to look at, Variety puts out a report in January of the previous year's movies, and they list all the movies by each studio. And you might look at, let's say, Warner Brothers, and you might see they put out 20 different movies. And you look at them, and there's a couple of names you immediately recognize, you know, Harry Potter and this one and that one that were well publicized, very successful films. And there's other films you look at and you say, I don't remember that one. And the reason you don't remember that one is that they opened it in Seattle for one weekend to market test it, and it did terribly, and then it went straight to video. And it didn't get much distribution. And all the major studios, if you look at their revenue and where it comes from a handful of pictures. Maybe about 3 dozen do about $50 million a year. Maybe 15 to 20 do $100 million, which is considered what's a blockbuster hit. But they're putting out 450, 500 movies a year. So most of the time they're getting up at bat. Even the major studios, they're getting up at bat, and they're hitting a single or double, or they're striking out. They're not hitting a home run. Most movies are not that successful, because even though they have the top writers and the top directors, they can't, you know, for some reason, you know, the story just doesn't resonate with the audiences. And nowadays, it's even tougher to figure out what audiences want. I mean, we can't even predict accurately what American moviegoers want to see. And nowadays, 2/3 of the revenue comes in from abroad. It used to be 50-50. The world was 50% North America, 50% the rest of the world. Now it's 2/3 the rest of the world, 1/3 the United States.